Hello, TCI family, Jonathan's Refuge. I know that we're also streaming this on another camera for FaceTime. I want to thank you all for joining us for our Thursday night church service in Marysville, Washington at Jonathan's Refuge. It is always an honor. I don't take the job I have very lightly. Being the Archbishop of an organization and a pastor at the end of the day and helping people change. I just wake up and pinch myself and say, really? I don't have to work today? Because it's not work to me. It's a passion and it's my vision and it's my dream. So I live it every day. I'm coming to you tonight. Let's get started. I've got a couple notes I've penciled out that I want to talk to everyone about. And it's a song, ironically, by Jelly Roll. So if you haven't heard the song, I want you to pause the video right now, pull up your cell phone, go to YouTube, whatever, and type in Jelly Roll, Jelly Roll, Jelly Roll. That's the artist's name. Big heavy set dude, tattoos all over his face. And then the song is called Unpretty. And I want you to close all the noise of the world out. And I want you to hear the song. I'd play it, but YouTube has a tendency to then copyright issues and shut your video down. So I don't want to do that. So I will let you do that right now. Welcome back from listening to the song. Now, a couple points I'm going to talk about. Number one, he said, I hate the man I used to be. My past ain't pretty. These are quotes. The man I was wrong, but he built me. I am nothing without my sins. I can't pretend I'm unpretty. I grew up in the Christian faith, and I hate to say this, but spiritual leaders have started to, for the last 100 years and prior, but the last 100 with all of social media, computers, printing, it's gotten exponentially explosive growth, and that can be in a positive way or a negative way. And unfortunately, I saw a faith that I love dearly teaching people that your past is ugly, who you were is disgusting or wretched. I always hear someone say, one of my favorite songs is Amazing Grace, right? How sweet is that song to my ears and my soul is music. But how much of a wretch am I? It teaches me I'm a wretch, the old person, the bad part of me. And that's true. And so we have a tendency to suppress who we were. We don't want to really discuss it. Well, I was a hoe bag back then. This period of my life, I slept with anybody. Or I was this person back then. Or I was a drunk. Or I was a drug addict. Or I was a prostitute. Or I was a gangster. Or I was a cheat. Or I was a liar. Or I was not trustworthy. Or I was a gossiper. I can continue with whatever it is. It doesn't matter. The point of the matter that does matter is we hide who we used to be. And we put a big cover over it. And we put some dirt on that cover. Now it's nice brown dirt. Then we go get some fertilizer and some seed. We put some grass down, some seed, grass, and we fertilize it. And we grow this beautiful green lawn. And on the surface, we have this great square patch. Beautiful, manicured, green grass that looks perfect. But if you would just dig an inch or two below the dirt, below the roots, you open it up and you look in, what are you going to see? Well, if you look in me, you're going to see a monster. I was a monster. I hated the man I used to be. I took my wife back on a trip to Maine once, kind of taking her through my life and going to certain places to show her, so that way when she hears a message and an experience that I went through, that she actually can understand the context and the background and the foreground and everything that was going on. I never thought I made my name off of an act 2 acts over a period of a week. I needed to prove that a teenage boy could run an adult organization for people that were in the underworld without naming names. And I did that by scaring the crap out of New England, not a state, not a city, but the entire region of our country called New England. That would be Maine, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Hampshire, all a huge chunk up there. Rhode Island. And I hurt a man. I'm not going to go into all the details, but I shattered his leg with a baseball bat. And the Irish Beast was put on the front stage. I saw that man just a couple years ago. His face looked like all the blood just rushed out of his body. You just see his face just terrified. For a second, I was excited because I get a chance to apologize to a person that I hurt. But then he just turned and ran as fast as he could. And I say run. Let me rephrase that. He hobbled as fast as he could to a car where he took off. "36 years or so. 37 years, 36 years later, something like that. I hate the man I used to be. My past isn't pretty. And the man that I was, he was wrong in many places. But that man built who I am. And see, when you try to cover up who you were, man, you're actually giving away some of your greatest gifts and not even realizing it. See, the kid who survived in Atlanta by joining a gang in a ghetto to survive because I was every day I was getting beat up. My family moved into an all encompassing nightmare in my world. And I was beat up daily and I was tired of it. So I thought my only solution was to join a gang. And then my brain, as smart as it is, figured out how I could take over an entire gang in an operation at just a child's age of 12. And did so because I was tired of hurting. So I created a way out, and then it escalated and it got bigger, and then I became more known, and then I became more vicious, and this monster became to the forefront. That man built me. I can be compassionate to a person now who has been hurt by a monster and a monster who has hurt others. And I can be compassionate to both sides because I've been on both sides. I've been the victim and I've been the monster. And they made me. For many years, there was an incident that occurred at the age of 7 for me. You guys mostly know it. When that deacon, head elder, at my dad's church, smashed my face. You meditate on this stuff for years. When I was viciously raped in prison, I know people who just focus on it. But they focus on it in a bad way. See, I was blessed to have great mentors who taught me how to turn my darkness, my scars, into stars. You can laugh at that and say that's a bunch of BS. Yeah, well, you're the idiot for thinking so. And I'll straight up call you an idiot for saying that. Because you can turn your scars into stars, and that is what this song is about. It's about coming to understanding of who you were, who you are, and who you're trying to be. And unless you can understand that, your past is who you are. No, it ain't. It ain't who I. Yes, it is. The Irish beast was a monster, and that monster, built the humble most of the time, the compassionate, the lover who loves all humans, was built by that monster. I am nothing without my sins, is one of his lines. I'm nothing without my sins. Take my sins away. What am I? I'm a man, doesn't have much experience. I'm not saying you got to sin to have experience. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying sinning, the word sin means to miss the mark. So when Jelly Roll says, I am nothing without my sins, that means I am nothing without missing the mark. When you miss the mark, you have to understand that changes you. You now have a memory and a pain or a joy that is associated with that memory, either pain or joy, because this emotion and this action that occurred made something in our life happen. And in my instance, it might have been a violent act that was done to me or I did to someone. And I can look back at that thought and see pain or joy, and I can meditate on it and just live in the pain, or I can live in the joy. But you're nothing without who you were. My friend just called me today from prison. We've been working on his release for 2 years, 2.5, 3 years almost, paying for things, thousands of dollars, expenses. He robbed a bank and got 40 years. It's proof that our system's screwed up and stupid. I'm not saying you shouldn't go to prison for robbing a bank. Absolutely, you should go to prison for robbing a bank. 40 years? That's excessive. Sickly excessive. So they changed the laws, and you only had to serve 18 years for a bank robbery with no gun involved. And he's already served like 20 years. So that he's actually passed his date of serving his time to his country for his crime. We're trying to get this man out. I don't care if you're a bank robber or a murderer. I don't care if you're a rapist or a child molester. I don't care if you are a drug addict or an alcoholic. You know, I always find people that they say, oh, I'll work with anybody, but not a rapist and not a child molester. Really? I think the drunk who goes to work 9 to 5 and actually shows up at his job and works properly, but goes home and gets drunk is worse than all of them, because they're the ones that actually kill more people and damage more people because they don't think they're bad. They're drunk. They're a complete drunk, or they're a complete drug addict, and they just justify it. I don't care. I don't care which one of these categories you fall into. It doesn't matter. But all of the sins, all of the things that you missed the mark on in your life, that's what the word sins mean. If you go back to the original root word for sins in the spiritual context of a Bible, like the Christian Bible or the spiritual faiths of the Vedas or different things of that nature, when we go back to the root words and we get into the Greek and the Hebrews and we go back to the original, then we start to find the Aramaic, the meaning. Missing the mark is what it means to sin. So sinning is not some horrible thing. It just means I missed the mark. I was aiming to not get upset. I got upset. I sinned. I missed the mark. So when Jelly Roll's saying I am nothing without my sins, what he's saying is everything that I did in my life that I messed up, that is my history. And that history will allow me, if I use it properly, to guide my future. Because I can remember the pain from making that mistake and go, nope, I remember. I did drugs. I got in trouble. I hurt family. I went to prison. That's guiding your future. Or you don't even think about the pain and you just go, man, I was using drugs and it was awesome. And then you keep going down that vicious cycle until finally you wake up and become enlightened that that's not the lifestyle for you. And that you can't be something without your sins. See what you did wrong in your life and what you're going to do wrong. My wife and me are a couple. People think we're perfect. We fight like any other couple do. Each week we get a little better because each week we try to improve. So every week we're always just one more week happier than the previous week because you learned a little better how to control your words so you don't say things that are hurtful. Not meaning. My wife's never looked at me and said a mean thing to me like, you're, and said that. Or and vice versa. But you're talking and you say something and bam, instantly you just triggered me because you said something that my ex-wife said. But it wasn't you lashing out at me. So the fact is, in the future, my wife's going to say things that are going to hurt me, unbeknownst to her. And I am going to say things that are going to trigger her. And bam, right back to her ex and all the hellish nightmares she went through. Did I do that purposely? No, I would never do that. I love her dearly. I like her a lot. I like her the most. But I am nothing without my sins. And it's really interesting because he ends it with saying, I can't pretend I am unpretty. I'm not pretty. And neither are you. Your shit stinks. Stop pretending you're beautiful. You're not. You're beautifully made unpretty. The person that can admit they're unpretty. The person that can admit they got crap. To me, that's the most beautiful person. They are pretty because they understand I'm human and my crap stinks just like everyone else. If you can't have this real conversation with yourself about this song, you're never going to be succeeding in anything you put your hand to. And if you ever find a little success, it's going to be by accident and you're going to think it's because you did it, then you're never going to be able to repeat it. Have you ever had a success 10 years ago and you just can't seem to repeat it? That's because that shows you didn't know an ounce of what you were doing. You just got lucky. I mean, the reality is if you roll dice, eventually you can roll a 7. Even the sun shines on the ass of a baboon once in a while. So you can get lucky. But you ever see the person who every time, just consistently, 6 out of 10 times, 7 out of 10 times, 8 out of 10 times, 9 out of 10 times, they're always right. They just succeed. And you're like, they're the luckiest person on earth. Luck has nothing to do with it. Folks, I'm Irish. The Irish have no luck. No person on earth has any more luck. White, black, you're no luckier. I don't care what you say. Oh, JB, you don't know. I was born to a white and black family. I can show you black people that got more success than white people because of their color. I can show you white people that got more success because of their color than another person. At the end of the day, there is no race. There is no ethnicity. There is no religion. There is no anything that gives you and me a luckier edge on anybody except one word. Hang on for it. It's called preparation. And I'm not talking about preparation H. I'm talking about preparation. 99% of luck is preparation. 1% is sitting around waiting for something good to happen. 99% of my luck is Jonathan Brown. I read you guys a poem a while ago about God's garden. Person walked by a garden and said, oh, this garden is immaculate. It's a 5-acre garden on this man's house. And they came to tell the man that he had the most beautiful garden. He should be so thankful that you must be lucky that God gave you this beautiful garden. And his reply was, you should have seen it when God had his hands on it and I didn't have anything to do with it. It was a wreck. Now, I know that ruffles people's feathers. They don't like hearing this poem from me back in the day. But this is a brilliant poem. The garden was never groomed nor taken care of until the man took care of it. Once he did, then everyone said, oh, you are so lucky to have God give you such a beautiful garden. He said, luck has nothing to do with it. You should have seen how it was before I put my hand to the plow, and it was just God taking care of it. See, God is not a puppet master. I do not believe that. And unfortunately, so often we have a front yard and it's a garden. And I see people that pray and say, I pray God will make my garden as beautiful as the one across the street. And 25 years, 30 years later, I go back to the same churches back in Maine and all over the country. And the same poor person is at the altar on Sunday morning praying for a miracle because they don't have finances, because their garden doesn't look as good as the next door neighbors. And there's only one reason why. And it has nothing to do with God making his garden look better or his garden more plentiful. It has to do with you making your garden more plentiful. Because God gave you the power. The Christ, when he was on earth, Jesus, he said, you will go on to do greater things than I. You will do more than I've ever done. The power of God was given to you and to me. What are you doing with the power of God? Because it doesn't make the garden just work. You have to put your hand to the plow. You have to remember you're unpretty. You have to remember your sins make you who you are. The great person, someone says, you're a great person. I am only who I am. And I'm not saying I'm great, by the way. I'm saying when someone says, you're such a good guy, you're such a great person, my reply is, that monster made me. And most people are like, oh, no. The good guy in you. No. The monster made me who I am. I am a kind, sweet man now because of the monster. So I don't run from my past. I embrace it. I share it. I talk about it. I use it in a positive way to move people in a forward positive motion in life. I hope as we close that you will take this song to heart. Maybe when I finish, if you would, close the message by just listening to the words one final time. Let the words sink into your heart, meditate on them, and understand it's okay that you were a monster once. You've changed. But remember, that monster made you who you are. I love you guys. God loves you. Let's remember as we go out there, let's coexist in this world, okay? And let's do so in a way that doesn't forget our past, but uses it to progressively push us forward, step by step, act by act. Love for each of God's creatures. I love you all. God bless. We'll see you next week.